Pastor Jason here with another Bible talk. I know you're reading through the Bible this year, and this week you're going to be reading through the book of Numbers. We're going to spend a couple weeks in Numbers actually, but it might not sound like an interesting book named Numbers, but really fascinating. A lot going on here. This is about the journey of God's people from Mount Sinai to the wilderness to the promised land. So you're going to see this journey here. Remember, Exodus 19, they're at Mount Sinai. Through a lot of the book of Exodus, they're right at Mount Sinai. All of Leviticus, they're at Mount Sinai. The first 10 chapters of Numbers, they're at Mount Sinai. But then they're going to start moving into the promised land. Now, Israel's shown itself to be a rebellious people. God's saying, no, I want you to be holy. I want you to be distinct, right? I want you to follow me. And the people of Israel continue to rebel. But God is trying to shape them up and prepare them for this journey. And so this first 10 chapters, you're going to see this numbering, this kind you're going to see these lists where God's saying, okay, the Levites, you're supposed to be arranged in this way around the tabernacle and as you're going. And so the main idea is just getting the people ready to go, as you're going to see that the first 10 chapters. And then they head out into the wilderness, right? And so the main part of the body of this book is in chapters 11 through 21. And you're going to start to see this pattern, okay? This is the people start complaining, they're grumbling, saying, we don't have any food here. It's hot out. I wish we could be back in Egypt. Why did God even bring us out here in the first place? And so they start to rebel against God. They're rebelling against Moses. They're rebelling against Aaron. And usually what happens is when there's some kind of a grumbling and rebellion happening, God says, okay, well, there's going to be a judgment. There's going to be consequences for that. And then God's going to say, okay, here's a new set of laws for you, a new set of rules. Here's some sacrifices for you to do to just cover your sins. And of course, pointing to the sacrifice of Jesus. He gives them feasts, saying, take these feasts, make sure you keep these as a remembrance of God's faithfulness. But this big pattern of the people just keep sinning, and then God says, okay, here's some laws. You know, you keep breaking the laws, here's some more laws to show you exactly how I want you to live. It can be a kind of depressing section as you're going through this because they just can't do it. God's calling them to be a holy people, and there's just something broken in their hearts, right? And so there's a stories of sin and rebellion, and then you start to move into this last section of the book, and especially in chapters 22 to 25, where the king of Moab hires this Gentile prophet named Balaam and says, I want you to curse the people of Israel. And as you're going through it, you might say, well, they deserve to be cursed because of how they're living. But once again, you see God's amazing grace as you're going through this because he doesn't allow Balaam to utter a curse. Every word that comes out of his mouth is a blessing. And so God, once again, he's saying, you know, these people are rebelling, they're sinning, but I'm going to bless them. I'm going to work through them, even though they don't understand it and realize it. So there's just another picture of God's grace. Last section of the book, they enter into the promised land. The people that live there, the Canaanites, start to attack them, and you're going to see this series of battles. But this book is about a journey, and you're going to see that journey of God's people. A lot of rebellion and sin and failing, and yet in the midst of it, there is God's grace. So I hope that helps. Some things to look for as you're reading through the book of Numbers. Happy reading. We'll see you next time. God bless.